Let's look at this critically. I have a management consultant, RTC Advisory, Vincent Nwani. He joins me now via Skype. Mr. Nwani, it's great to have you join us on the show. First, what's your reaction? This has been passed by the Senate. It's never happened before. We expect President to put pen to paper as soon as possible. But what's your direct reaction to this?
All right, thank you, Tolu, for having me. You said it has not happened before. I think I need to, first of all, start from that point, at least to correct that notion. It has happened before. This is the third time it's happening since 1999 when Nigeria returned to democracy. You know, before now, it happened in 2000 and it happened in 2003, it happened in 2007, you know, when Nigeria had budget on or before January 1st. You know, having been the third time, and we've not seen this over the last 10 years plus, I think the National Assembly needs some pat on the back for doing this. You know, and we congratulate them because the budget presented by the president on the 10th of October and passed on the 5th of November, I think is fairly unprecedented. But having said that, one thing is about timeline of consideration and passage of approval by the Senate. The other one is timeline for signing. Because over the last 19 years, it takes average of 19 days from the day National Assembly approved the budget to the date the president will sign. So we hope to also see that the president will also reciprocate by signing this bill, in fact, today, you know, so that on January 1, we will have our budget up and running. So that the type of confidence issue that operators in the private sector always have, having to wait for budget to be approved and passed into law or signed into law in May or June, you know, will be a thing of the past for next year. As we also said this, we want to see how much the 2019 budget, the current budget, have been implemented, because implementation is the main issue. You know,
Mr. President, let me interject you now. Talking about implementation, which is what many analysts like you have talked about. Let's look at the assumptions in this budget. How feasible, how well do you see this playing out as we move on in 2020?
Well, it's almost late to begin to talk about the assumption now because it's been approved. You know, the budget being jacked up from 10.3 to almost 10.6, you know. And the question I ask myself, what type of a National Assembly do you have as far as budget is concerned? Do we have a budget-making National Assembly or budget-influencing National Assembly, where National Assembly can add and delete or reduce, you know, when they are not the ones implementing? You know, I was thinking that the best thing is to have a budget-influencing National Assembly instead of budget-making National Assembly as we have that. But this is a case of law and a case of regulation that we are clamoring for that to change or improve. In terms of, can I say, assumption now, and the key assumption we normally talk about is oil assumption, that, whether it is about production capacity and the price of crude oil. I think the assumption here for price of crude oil is $57 per barrel. You know, today the oil price is hovering around a little bit above 60, I think 61, 62. That is too close to call. Anything happening in the US in terms of pumping more, or if we have so much peace in the Middle East, that will affect this assumption. Again, in terms of production, on the average, our production is between 1.8 million to 1.850 million, you know, in 2019, even over the last 2 years. And now the assumption here is 2.18 million per day. So you find out that ab initio, we're already running a deficit of 300,000 barrels per day. So these are some of the loopholes I've seen in the current assumption. And also having inflation rate. You know, the assumption says inflation rate are single digit. Today, inflation rate is 11.6%. And with all the things we're seeing, you know, including the implementation of new minimum wage in the federal level and state levels, you talk about the VAT, jacking of VAT from 5% to 7.5%, and some other things that including, of course, the almighty border closure. You know, all of these point to the fact that in the next few months, the next 6 months, we're going to see inflation move from where it is today at 11.6% to something higher. But the budget benchmark or assumption is assuming something single digit. So all of this clearly show that this benchmark this budget have some question mark. But having said that, I think it's important to celebrate the timeline now, so that when we are coming back after New Year's and there's a festive period, we are home and dry with a document that we can begin to implement and also make our budget, because this is also time for the private sector to make their budget and also understand the type of money government want to pump into key sectors and the underlying assumption.
All right,
So
Dr. Vincent Nwani, thank you very much.
I
Managing Consultant, RTC Advisory. One way or the other, it is something to rejoice about, looking at the budget cycle slightly returning to January, December, while we also find out if this has actually, and how well, what date was it actually signed in the years you mentioned earlier. Thank you.